bright, beautiful world, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a video about my own writing. So today we're going to get into characters that are in my current fae novel that I'm working on, and we're going to get started with those. So when I say off the names, it'll go in order of appearance, not by the importance of a character. I know sometimes when authors kind of do videos introducing their characters, they go by how important they are in the story, or depending on how often you'll see them in the story. But I want to go in the order of appearance, just because I feel like that'll be more fun. So that when you do get to read this novel, hopefully in the future, that you'll get to see where each character comes in and their importance as they go along through the story. So we're going to get started with the main character. His name is Lathe, and he is a 17, almost 18-year-old boy, and he lives alone with his greatnana, and they live in this apartment in New York City. And so basically, he's only ever had his nana in his life. He doesn't know who his parents are. His parents are dead. And he's basically just kind of going through life the best that he can. Not kind of completely fitting in anywhere, always constantly feeling like he doesn't belong and that he doesn't kind of sit well anywhere in the city or in school. And he's constantly just kind of looking for that place where he feels that he completely belongs. And another thing that I want to mention is that Lathe has a condition where he has two different colored eyes. So he has one blue eye, one green eye, and each eye has flecks of brownish kind of gold in them. And you'll figure out why this is later. But he has a very different kind of interest to his eyes. And he has a condition that kind of explains that to humans. And there's a different reason in fate terms. So that's a good thing to kind of remember about him. And he's also blonde. So there's nothing special about the blonde hair, but he's a blonde 17, almost 18-year-old, and he kind of is trying to navigate the world as best he can. So the next person that I want to move into is his greatnana, and she's not completely important in the very first chapter, not until kind of later in the first chapter, but she's just a very old woman who loves to knit and eat pears and kind of just be there for Lathe when he needs him, or when he needs her, and kind of just be that support and the guardian that he needs, because of the fact that he doesn't have parents and he doesn't really have any other family outside of her. So that's kind of the most important thing in his life, is his nana. So next we're gonna move into Joel, and Joel is Lathe's best friend, kind of. They have a weird relationship because of the fact that Joel kind of picks on Lathe all the time, but he does it in a kind of loving, kind of protective way. And Joel is kind of Lathe's only friend in the world. Because of the fact that Lathe kind of doesn't fit in anywhere else, Joel is the only place where he kind of feels comfortable, and kind of gets along better with Joel than anybody else because of the fact that they just kind of know each other. So that is that. And the next person that I want to move into is Ashknee. And Ashknee is a fairy. So she is a warrior fairy. And the very first time that she meets Lathe is in a kind of sticky situation. So you meet Ashknee, and she is a kind of older but not too old fairy, who's got this bright red orangish hair that kind of looks yellow in the sunlight, and she's got these big brown eyes, and she's just kind of this badass character, who's kind of there to protect Lathe, unbeknownst to him. And you meet her in the very first chapter, and she's kind of this sassy, kind of don't get in my way, very kind of offstandish person, because of the fact that she has a very rocky past, and she's very kind of closed off to anybody who's not somebody she trusts. And in the very first moment, she doesn't trust Lathe, but you kind of start to see her give that away as she carries on with Lathe's story. So next we're going to move into talking about Kaeya, who is probably one of my favorite characters, or I guess one of my favorite fairies. Because of the fact that she's so bubbly and so energetic. She just has this like great positive energy, and she's never really down. If she's down, you know there's a problem. And she has these really big iridescent wings that just are so pretty. She's basically your typical like idea of what a fairy would look like. Um, Except that she has like this really bright curly blue hair, and her eyes are really bright blue, and she has pale blue skin. And I'll talk about this in a little bit after I'm done going through all the characters. But each fairy kind of goes, is from a specific place, so the way that they look will matter, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So Kaeya is another one of Lathe's guardians. So Lathe has 3 guardians, and Ashknee, Kaeya, and then the other one that I will talk about right now. And basically they're just there to kind of watch over Lathe, protect Lathe from anything that's kind of trying to harm him, and kind of show him the way around the Fey world. So the next guardian and the last guardian for Lathe is Cleon, or as they call him, Talon. So basically he's this giant warrior fairy, very muscular, very rough around the edges. He's kind of got this like scowl on his face all the time. And he's got these bright yellow eyes that reminds Lathe of a falcon. If anybody's ever seen falcon eyes, that's basically what Cleon's eyes look like. And they call him Talon because his fingernails have a part of his long fingers are long talon-shaped nails. So he has talons, basically. So that's why they call him Talon. And because of his brutality, of being like this like brute warrior, that never loses a fight and is always, this great protector. So that's Lathe's final protector. Next we have the Queen of the Fae, Anya. So Anya is this very regal, very elegant Queen of the Fae, and she's basically kind of like the head for all fairies. She's royalty in the sense that the Fae pick kind of through the line, like through the lineage, who the next like royalty or the next like king or queen is supposed to be. So you'll find out later in the story that her brother was actually the king of the Fae, but because he died, she ended up taking his place as queen of the Fae. And I'll kind of go into this later as soon as I describe like the world and how it works and why the fairies look a certain way. But this is part of the reason why the kingdom works the way that it does. And that'll go into kind of another thing that I talk about later. So that's Anya. Next, we have Anya's consort, who is Marik. So Marik is a very like tree-like fairy. When Lathe first sees him, he very much resembles a cypress tree to Lathe, and kind of the color scheme and the way that he looks, the way that his skin looks. And he just kind of is this very regal kind of, oh, I'm here for the queen type of way. And that's basically Anya's husband, which is why it's her consort. And he is not king. But kind of, you'll see why later this is important. But basically he's just there to be by the queen's side. And instead of being king, he's her consort. So he has no control over making decisions for the Fae, but he can talk to Anya about things that he thinks could be changed. So that is Marik. Next, we're going to move into Ginko, and Ginko is also one of my favorites because he's this little troll-like fairy with really pointy ears and these bright red eyes, and he just reminds me of a goblin. I don't know why, but he reminds me of those little goblins, and he always wears this beanie that he stole from the human world the one time that he went. So Ginko is a, like, tag-along character. He's not a guardian of any kind, but he does follow along with Lathe and his band of guardians as they kind of navigate their way through the Fey world. And he's just a little spitball fire guy. He's a kind of thief, very mischievous, always kind of in people's pockets. And it's when he's trying to pickpocket Cleon that Lathe and the rest of his group meet him. So definitely keep an eye out for Ginko because he pops up when you least expect him. And I'd say he's one of my favorites because of the fact that he's just so funny and kind of just always in the way when you don't expect him to be. So the next person that I want to talk about is Karpis, and Karpis is he's old Fae, so meaning that he's one of the older, kind of part of the oldest form of the Fae, and he definitely looks it. So he is one of the oldest fairies to be alive in the Fae world, and he's a historian of the legacies and the history of the Fae world. He also kind of helps those who need help with magic and kind of getting their, place and their foothold in what it means to kind of hold magic and what it means to use it. So one of their first stops is to kind of try and find Karpis so that Lathe can kind of understand his history and go along with learning how to use magic and what it means to kind of be a Fae. So Karpis is a very old man, but he's one of my favorites because of the fact that he's very intelligent and he knows what he's doing, and I think the fact that he seems to have a bit of certainty in this world and this moment in which Lathe has no certainty, that it kind of helps Lathe along his journey and his kind of just time being in the Fae world. So that's Karpis, and one of the last characters that I want to talk about is Albatross, and Albatross is a subject of the Summer Tribe, and he's kind of this oily, inky, kind of assassin dude. He's very slithery and kind of coy, and he's not very obvious at first. You kind of have to look for him in places that you wouldn't think you'd see him. And he's very good at what he does. He's a very good assassin, very good spy. And he's just this all around kind of bad dude that you kind of don't want to be around because of the fact that he looks so oily. What makes Albatross so interesting in terms of how oily and dark he looks is the fact that he doesn't look like anybody from the Summer Tribe, even though he is a subject of the Summer Tribe. He doesn't resemble anybody from that tribe. He's very much kind of like an outsider, but it works in his benefit that whenever anybody outside of the tribes meet him, no one seems to know where he's from or who he could be working for. So that's another thing to think about. So those are all the characters that I want to talk about today. Now I kind of want to move into the aspects of the world and talk about kind of the history of this Fae world that I want to bring to life. So we're going to start off with the Kingdom of the Fae. So there's different tribes within the kingdom. There's a sole purpose, a soul castle, that is part of the kingdom for whoever is in control of the Fae at the time. So because the Fae kind of live longer than humans, their times of reign are very different from what we would think. And so is their process of choosing who is in the line for the throne to rule the kingdom. So basically how it works for that is that whoever is in the seat at the time, if they have a legacy that continues down the line, then they will be the ones who hold the seat for the throne. So as I mentioned earlier, Anya's brother was the one who was originally the king of the Fae, but when he died, she was the one who took over the throne and became the queen of the Fae. So how this works is if there is an immediate person that can follow along through the lineage, then they are the ones who take over the throne. So, of course, it follows along with the males first. So if there's an oldest male, then he would take the throne. And then if he dies, then it would be the next sibling down. So it doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl from there. The next person in line for the throne would be the next sibling down the line. So cousins kind of don't count. It has to be direct through that main line. So it would have to be immediate family. So siblings or children or great-grandchildren, that type of thing. So from there, that's how Anya became queen. Her brother died, and he was the first king. He was king before her, and because he died, she became queen. Now, this will become important later in the novel because of the fact that Anya is not supposed to be queen. Someone else is supposed to be taking the throne because of lineage and who is alive and who is supposed to be on the throne, so keep that in mind. But technically Anya is not supposed to be queen at the moment, and it kind of leaves it open for what would happen if there are no more people to kind of carry on that legacy. So if there hadn't been any other siblings for Anya's brother at the time, and she wasn't there, then the next thing that would happen is that the elders of the Fae would get together and they would decide which tribe would be the next one to take in the line. So if there was no one else to take over the king's place after he died, excluding Anya. So if Anya didn't exist, because Anya was the only other sibling to that king, if no one else existed, then the elders would get together and kind of decide from which tribe they would pick a family and go from there. So as soon as the elders found the tribe that they wanted and they found the family that they wanted, then they would pick the head of that family to become the next person to take over. So there's a group of elders that are in charge of kind of picking the lineage and making sure that the lineage of the throne kind of works smoothly. So they'll be the people that will decide, if there's no one else to kind of fill the throne, who will become the next king or queen, depending on who the oldest of that family is, and go from there. So because of the fact that the king died and Anya was still alive, she was able to take the throne. And this can also be decided from the elders too, that if they feel that Anya is not fit to be the queen, then they could have picked a different family from a different tribe. But because Anya was able to take over the throne and was fit for the seat, they gave her the throne. Now, because of the fact that different things have come into play, this will start to bring out the elders again, and you'll see that the throne will start to change, and the ideas of who should be on the throne will start to change throughout the novel. So that'll be something to keep an eye out for. Now, I've mentioned before a lot of times through this video how there are different tribes within the Fae world. So these different tribes definitely are important because of the fact that each tribe has a specific job. So it's kind of obvious, it's not like, something too complicated, but basically each tribe represents each season. So there's summer, fall, winter, and spring. And each tribe has its job of creating that season within the Fae world and also within the human world. So they have very big jobs because at each time there are the work fairies that have to go out and create these, seasons for the Fae world and for the human world. So another thing that I want to kind of pinpoint on is the fact that sometimes fairies are late, sometimes fairies have other things going on, so this can kind of explain why certain seasons are late, why certain seasons are early, and it kind of plays a role with the mortal world while also playing with the Fae world, so that'll be something fun to look out for, because there are times where in the human world that you'll see different things happening in terms of the seasons and why that is because of the Fae. So keep an eye out for that. So that kind of explains the tribes a little bit. Each tribe has its own season. So there's summer, winter, fall, and spring. And each fairy kind of has specific characteristics that go along with that. So for the winter fairies, they're very much pale skinned. They have usually white or gray hair. Sometimes black, but it's very rare. And they have very light eyes and usually very pale, almost white skin. But sometimes they have light pink, light peach, so their skin color will be different, but usually it's very fair because of the fact that they're in winter. The next tribe that I kind of want to talk about is the spring court. So it's kind of hard to differentiate sometimes between the spring court and the summer court because each one is very much bright and colorful and kind of reminiscent of those seasons. But talking about the spring court, they're very much flowery. Usually they have different types of some element of nature a part of them. So Kaeya is a part of the spring court. She is very much like a flowing river. She's very blue, very bright, kind of in your face. And she's just very bubbly, which is kind of a characteristic of the spring fae. They have very bright colors, but usually they'll have greens and pinks and oranges and pastel colors. Some of them have flowers, some of them have vines. They're very reminiscent of nature and kind of have parts of nature on them. So sometimes when Lathe is looking at Kaeya, he'll kind of recognize the fact that she's very much like a flowing river. She kind of flows the way that she does. She has a current to her. So those are different things that while Lathe and you as a reader navigate through the Fae world, you'll kind of notice those different things. Another tribe that I want to talk about is the Summer tribe. So Marik is from the Summer tribe, and Marik has like this very dark brown, kind of barkish, like brittle skin that makes him very reminiscent of a tree. And his hair is really like green. So as I mentioned before, when Lathe sees Marik, he kind of recognizes him as like a cypress tree, or reminds him of a cypress tree. And this kind of just goes along with like being kind of like bold, and kind of they're always warm. Sometimes they're kind of hot-headed, so those fairies tend to be a little bit more like short-tempered, and they're kind of very like warm, and whenever you're around them you kind of feel that like warmth next to them, those types of things. So spring fae can be kind of breezy, and the summer fae are very hot and kind of like warm. And then the last one that I want to talk about is the fall fairies. So the fall tribe is very much as it is. There's a lot of autumn colors like reds, oranges, yellows, dark browns, light browns, like those types of things. And Ashknee is a part of the fall tribe of fairies. And one thing that I want to mention that you'll see in the book is that the fall tribe is not as respected as the spring, summer, and winter court. And that has to do with the fact that there is a bit of history there. There is some stuff that happened along in the past that kind of made the fall tribe kind of have a falling out with all the other tribes, and is not seen or as respected as the others. So that kind of goes along with Ashknee's past, and what will kind of make her, you know, so standoffish and so closed off from everybody else. So you'll get that history as you read, but just wanted to throw it out there that the fall tribe is the one that kind of is apart from everybody else, even though they're still included. So those are all of the tribes for that. And I kind of just want to talk about briefly the kind of premise of the story, if you will, without getting too kind of spoilery. But you find out very much in the first chapter that Lathe is not exactly who he thinks he is. He has a bit of history with the Fae, and his family has history with the Fae. So it kind of becomes important to pay attention to the different aspects of the Fae world, who belongs to what family, and what it just means to be a part of this Fae world. So yeah, that is all of my characters that I want to mention, that I feel need to be mentioned, and kind of give you a little bit of history and backstory on them, and also kind of how this Fae world will start to kind of form and will work in my head at least. Definitely some of the things that I've read kind of help me visualize my world a little bit better, without taking anything from the books that I've read, so no plagiarism here. But definitely kind of give me this idea of what it means to be a part of a Fae world. And definitely I hope as you read that you'll also discover things while Lathe is discovering them, and kind of go along with this Fae world that you've never been a part of and Lathe has never been a part of. This will be his first time seeing anything, you know, outside of New York City. And it'll be very interesting to kind of have him go along with that. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, ideas, theories already, anything that you kind of want to talk about, leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear more, please leave a like. And if you really like my channel and like the videos that I'm putting out, please subscribe to my channel. I'm always here to welcome new subscribers. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!